Hi, it's Dorothy Guining with Scrapbooking Quebec. In this video, I'm going to give you step-by-step instructions with measurements on how to create this 12 by 12 layout. My jumping off point was a challenge I found on a Facebook group called Mercy Tiara's 27-Day Challenge. And the challenge was to incorporate 5 different things on one page. Now what I had to incorporate were one large scenic photo. I had to use a shape or a border punch. I had to use splatters with either paint or mist. I had to do some stamping or embossing, and I had to use pattern paper as a background. Now I will write all of that information in the description box below this video, and I'm also going to write the name of the Facebook group, so I highly recommend you check them out if you haven't already. Now this is the material I selected for my project today, and most of it comes from Stampin' Up, and it's a total stash bust right down to the tools that I use. So basically I'm going to be scrapbooking a photo of a monastery from ancient Ireland. It dates back to the 6th century and the ruins to the 10th to the 13th century. So let's just say the material I had on hand did not reflect my theme. So what I'm going to do here is show you how I prepared my foundation page. Now I did some cutting in advance, and as I use the pieces, I will put the measurements on the screen. So what I did was I created this frame style foundation with 2 pieces of cardstock. And what I'm going to do is add some ink mist as well as do some stamping. Now both of those are elements I have to incorporate on this page in order to qualify for the challenge. So I will have done 2 of the 5 things already. Now this is a Tim Holtz mist spray. It's a distress spray and it's called Tattered Brass. And I basically spray in the bottom left-hand corner and in the top right-hand corner because a lot of the middle is going to be covered up with layers of pattern paper. I find that it kind of wets my paper a bit, so I'm not exactly happy with what it's doing right now, and I'm trying to dry it. But what I do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do some stamping anyway, even though I'm not quite happy with it at this point. In the end, I'm glad I continued because I quite like my finished look. Also, I find that this spray doesn't show up very well, even less so on the screen. And at the end of this video, I end up adding some more as well. So I'm going to use these stamps. It's a stamp set from Stampin' Up called Timeless Textures. And it's a really beautiful stamp set for backgrounds. And it's also good if you want to create like a shabby chic or an old-fashioned look as well. And I only stamp in a few spots, but again, I go back after the video finishes and I add a bit more stamping to the left-hand side, and you'll see that in the stills at the end of this video. So I'm still not happy with how wet the background is at this point, and my cream colored paper is lifting a bit, so I'm adding ink, I'm trying to dry it, and finally I end up turning off the video and going and getting a heating tool to try to dry this page a bit more before I continue. And there I go with the heating tool. So now I'm ready to adhere a layered paper background. And this is basically number 3 of 5 elements I have to incorporate in this project for the challenge. Now I'm going to write the measurements for these 3 pieces of pattern paper on the screen, but it's going to create kind of a nice layered look underneath my photo, title, and text. This is an old set of paper by Stampin' Up. I don't even know the name of it. It's a few years old for sure. It's been kicking around forever. But basically what I was looking for was any material that had an old world look about it. So I went straight to my neutrals and I found this. I could have used muted colors as well. Now, once I finish getting this down, I'm going to create a little photo, text, and title cluster on a piece of vellum, and you'll see that in a minute. And yeah, just hang on a sec, you'll see it there, and you'll notice that I did my writing already on the vellum, and basically that's a piece of vellum cardstock from Stampin' Up. It's 8.5 by 11. I literally did my journaling on the computer, placed it towards the bottom, justified it towards the right, and ran it through the printer. Now I cut out my title in advance with the Big Shot, put it on wax paper just so that I could have an idea of how much space it would take, and then I adhered this photo. It measures 8 inches by 6 inches on top of where the title will be. I'm not going to glue the title right yet because I'm going to want to add some decorations underneath it. And what you saw me do there was I ended up tearing the bottom, which is a great way to add an old look to a page. And I also simply trimmed the top so that that vellum really fit the photo, title, and text. Now what I'm going to do is create some decorations. I did adhere that vellum to the background, and now what I'm going to do is create some decorations, and I'm using a bundle from Stampin' Up called Cross of Hope. And basically what I did was I stamped some vines, and I used Mossy Meadow. It's like a dark green ink for those vines, and then I cut them out with the Big Shot, and I also cut out with the Big Shot these crosses. Now this is taking place at a monastery, so these are perfect for the theme of my page. In the end, I end up replacing those vines with vines that I stamped in black. I really wanted to keep it kind of neutrals, tone on tone. And what you see me using there were some leaves that I punched out with Pear Pizzazz cardstock. That's a color by Stampin' Up. And that in the end is going to be the only real color on my page. So now that I sort of know where my clusters are going to go, which is in the bottom left-hand corner and the top right, I'm adhering my title down. I had already placed the cross there because the C from the title, Clon Mecnoise, is going on top of one of the crosses. And now what I'm going to do is start adhering those vines. So when I build embellishment clusters, I always start with the larger pieces, and in this case it's crosses in the bottom left and in the top right. And now I'm going to work my way towards the smaller pieces. So the medium pieces are these vines here that I'm adhering, and then I will continue with those punched out leaves. And by the way, the 4th and 5th element for this challenge, one of them was the large scenic photo, which is on the page already, and the other one, the 5th one, was a punched out shape, and I punched out my leaves. So I've already made all 5 elements work on this page. So now what you see me doing is adding even smaller pieces, and what these are, they're almost like little sequins, except they look like pie plates, and they're something that I got from Felicity Jane at one point in a kit. So I basically adhered them to the middle of the crosses with some enamel shapes that are kind of clear and shiny. So now what you see me doing is adding some more spray to the page because I felt like it was too covered up and that you didn't see it. Now what you don't see is that off camera I added a bit more stamping to the left hand side of the page. I also, as I mentioned earlier, replaced the dark green vines with black so that the only color on the page are those punched out leaves. And then I took my fingernail and kind of glided it all along underneath the pattern paper to rip up the paper a bit to add even a more of an old look. But here's a page I made with the very same page design, except I used 3 photos instead of 1 large one. And I used more modern paper. It's got a less of an old feel about it. So you can just see you don't need to make an old page to follow this video. You can also do a more modern times one as well. So this is the page. I hope you enjoyed it. I do recommend you check out Mercy Tiara's 27-day challenge on Facebook if you haven't already. It's a really fun, dynamic group. And if you haven't subscribed to Scrapbooking Quebec yet and you like this video, please press the subscribe button and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.